The kettle whistled softly as I reached for the mugs. The morning light hadn't yet touched the window panes, but my body didn't need the sun to know it was 5:30. After 40 years of early rises, I still woke before the birds. The house was quiet, just the way I liked it. I moved through the kitchen like muscle memory, 2 scoops of coffee, a splash of oat milk, the ceramic click of the spoon against the cup. I didn't hear Lily's little feet. She was always light on them, more whisper than child when she walked. When I turned, she was already sitting on the edge of the kitchen stool, her legs swinging gently, still in her dinosaur pajamas. "Grandma," she said, her voice a secret, "Mommy and Daddy said they're taking your money tonight." My hand stilled mid-stir. The air in the kitchen shifted, heavier somehow. I smiled the kind of smile adults put on when they don't want a child to know they're scared. "That's a silly thing to say, sweetheart." "What do you mean?" She shrugged and reached for a cracker from the jar. "I don't know. I was supposed to be asleep. They were talking downstairs. Daddy said you didn't need it all. Mommy said she'd help you." I crouched beside her and brushed a curl from her face. "You didn't dream this?" "Nope. I was hiding under the blanket. But I could hear them." She went back to crunching like nothing was wrong. I stood slowly, gripping the edge of the counter just long enough to steady myself. My heart was beating too hard for someone who hadn't moved more than 10 steps. Lily finished her snack and ran off toward the living room, humming to herself. I poured the coffee, though I no longer wanted it. The bitterness rising in my throat had nothing to do with the roast. By the time Erin walked in, heels already on, phone already in hand, I'd packed away my fear. Erin breezed through the kitchen like it belonged to her, dropping her dry cleaning receipt on the counter without a word and opening the fridge with one hand while tapping a message with the other. I passed her the travel mug I'd already prepared. She took it without looking up. "Can you pick up Lily from school today?" she asked, finally glancing up. "Jason has a client dinner, and I'm showing 2 properties." I nodded the same way I had for years. "Of course." She smiled briefly, tight and distracted. "You're the best," she said, and then she was gone. The front door closing with that careful click she always used when she was running late. I leaned against the sink and looked out the window. The garden still held the shape Thomas had given it, the raised beds, the stone border. He dug every inch by hand the year after he retired, back when we believed we'd have 20 more springs together. Instead, we got 2. After Thomas passed, everything shifted. Not overnight, but in slow, quiet increments. I had 3 children, all grieving in their own way, and none of them prepared for life without their father. Jason took it the hardest. His father's son in every way the same laugh, the same way of tilting his head when confused, but without Thomas's steady patience. I sold our vacation cabin, paid off Jason's credit cards when Erin asked. She didn't like to say debt, just tight months. I let Sophia move into the apartment over the garage and never asked for rent. "It's only temporary," she said. That was 6 years ago. When Erin wanted to start her real estate business, she needed help with a down payment on an office space. I wrote a check that day, no questions. Thomas would have said yes, and that was enough for me. I paid for Lily's preschool, then kindergarten, then music classes. Each time it felt right, like mothering, just longer. But somewhere along the line, they stopped saying thank you. Then they stopped asking. Now, it was assumed that I'd cover the groceries if the account ran low, that I'd keep the house just in case someone needed to move back, that I'd be here, always here, just off to the side. That morning, after Lily's revelation, I began to notice things I'd been ignoring. The way Erin's eyes slid past me when we talked about finances, how Jason's visits became more frequent whenever a bill was due, the casual references to my memory issues I didn't have, but that Erin mentioned in passing to neighbors, to Lily's teacher, even once to my doctor during a routine visit. "Mom's been a little forgetful lately," she'd said, a concerned daughter attending to her aging mother's appointment. "Haven't you, Mom?" I'd laughed it off then. Only about the things I don't want to remember. But now, remembering Lily's words, I wondered if there was a pattern I hadn't wanted to see. That afternoon, I rifled through the drawer where I kept financial paperwork. My bank statements were there, but the most recent ones were missing. Had I moved them, I tried to remember the last time I'd seen them. Had Aaron asked to borrow them for something I couldn't recall? And that bothered me more than the missing statements themselves. I called the bank. "Mrs. Holt, we sent those statements to your email," the representative said. "Would you like us to resend them?" "Yes, please," I said, then paused. "Could you tell me if anyone else has access to my accounts?" A few keystrokes. Then, "Yes, ma'am. Your daughter-in-law, Erin Holt, was added as an authorized user last September." My stomach dropped. I didn't authorize that. "I see here that the forms were signed and notarized. Mrs. Holt." I thanked her and hung up. My hands shaking slightly as I powered up my old laptop. I rarely checked email, another thing Aaron had taken over to help. But I knew my password, or I thought I did. After 3 failed attempts, I was locked out. Lily found me still staring at the screen. "Grandma, are you sad?" she asked, climbing into my lap. I wrapped my arms around her small frame. "No, sweetheart, just thinking." "About what Mommy and Daddy said." I hesitated, then nodded. "Lily, do you remember anything else they talked about? About me or my money?" She twisted a strand of her hair, thinking. "Daddy said something about papers, that you needed to sign papers so they could keep you safe." "Keep me safe," she nodded solemnly. "He said old people need help with money stuff." Old people. I was 70, not ancient. I'd managed our family finances for 45 years, through recessions and booms, through Thomas's medical bills and 3 college tuitions, but now I needed help with money stuff. "Anything else, Lily?" "Mommy said," she hesitated, her face scrunching up. "She said it needed to happen before you got confused. Are you confused, Grandma?" I squeezed her tight. "No, sweetheart. I'm not confused at all." I didn't mean to linger in the hallway the next morning. Not exactly. I was on my way to put fresh towels in the upstairs bathroom when I caught the edge of Jason's voice, low and clipped, from behind the barely ajar guest room door. "She's not getting any younger," he said. "If we don't step in now, she might waste everything," Erin responded, her tone softer but no less pointed. "We're not stealing from her. We're protecting her. She doesn't need that much money sitting around. It's not safe." There was a pause, the kind that carries weight, and then Jason added, "And we could actually put it to use. That house is just sitting there like a vault." I stood perfectly still. The towel bundle pressed tight against my chest. My heart thudded once, hard and slow, like it was deciding whether to break or steel itself. "Once she signs over access, it'll make everything easier," Erin said. "She probably won't even notice," Jason replied, "especially if we keep it framed as support." The towel slipped a little in my arms, but I didn't move. I waited until their voices softened into indistinct murmurs, then backed down the hallway. My footsteps careful, practiced. I returned to the kitchen, folded the towels neatly on a chair, and started wiping down the stovetop. Though it was already clean, my hands moved out of habit, but my thoughts were elsewhere, drawing invisible lines between yesterday's whisper from Lily and what I just heard with my own ears. They weren't planning to ask me. They were planning around me. I didn't cry. I didn't feel rage either. Not yet. What I felt was something sharper, steadier, an alertness that hadn't stirred in years. The same quiet instinct that once told me when a fever was rising in a child before the thermometer confirmed it. Something was coming. That night, I called Eleanor. Eleanor didn't say hello when she picked up. She never does. Just, "What's wrong?" Like she could already hear the shift in my breathing. I told her everything. Lily's whisper, the conversation behind the door, the way Aaron barely looked at me anymore, like I'd become another one of the fixtures in the house. Useful, dependable, but not worth consulting. When I finished, there was a short silence on her end. Then her voice came through, calm and dry as ever. "They're not protecting you. Beverly, they're circling you. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came because part of me had already known that. Part of me had known it even before Lily spoke. Check your accounts, she said. Everything bank, investments, your will, anything you once gave them access to. Even casually take it back. I don't think they've taken anything yet, but they will, and they'll convince themselves they're doing it for your own good. I sat on the edge of the bed, the phone warm against my ear. It's just so calculated, Eleanor snorted. It's survival. They see your savings, your home, your routine, and they're thinking long term. You're a safety net, Beverly. But safety nets don't get consulted. They get leaned on. I swallowed hard. Erin said something about helping manage things, just until I didn't want to anymore. She'll say it's temporary. Jason will call it peace of mind. But once your name is off the documents, you'll never get it back. I didn't want to believe it, but I trusted Eleanor more than I trusted my own optimism. You need to act before they do, she said. Get your lawyer, quietly. Don't announce a thing. I looked across the room at Thomas's old writing desk, where I still kept the original copy of our will, the one we'd drafted before he passed. Start there, she said, as if she'd seen where my eyes landed. Then look at the rest. They're counting on you being too polite to stop them. The line went quiet for a moment, just long enough for me to hear the distant ticking of the wall clock downstairs. The next morning, I asked Sophia if she had a minute. She was folding laundry in the garage apartment when I came by. The space was warm and quiet, smelling faintly of detergent and lemon oil, the way she liked it. She looked up when I entered, then down again, her fingers fumbling with a towel that didn't need that much smoothing. I need to ask you something, I said. She nodded too quickly. Okay. Do you know what Jason and Erin are planning? She paused just long enough to answer me without words, the kind of pause where the truth stands just behind the teeth, waiting for permission. I stepped closer. Sophia, her mouth tightened. They said you might need help, that you've been forgetting things. I haven't. I know, she whispered, eyes still fixed on the towel. But they think, or maybe they just want to believe. I waited. They're talking about a family meeting, she said finally. Soon, maybe this weekend. They want it to seem casual, but... She swallowed. They're going to ask you to sign some things, just a power of attorney. They said, just in case. I sat down beside her on the edge of the bed, careful not to touch the neatly folded shirts. Did you agree to it? I didn't say yes, she said. But I didn't say no either. I watched her for a moment. Her hair was pulled back the same way it always had been since college, neat, unassuming. She looked like a woman who had trained herself to take up less space. I knew the habit well. I don't want to lose them, she murmured. If I speak up, if I take your side, they'll freeze me out. I'm not asking you to take sides, I said gently. I'm asking you to see clearly. Sophia looked up then, finally meeting my eyes, and in that flicker of contact, I saw it. Fear, yes, but something stronger just beneath it, a line that hadn't yet been crossed. I'll be there, she said, voice small but firm. When it happens, I'll be there. I nodded, feeling something settle inside me. We sat together for a few more minutes, not saying much. Later that afternoon, as I was preparing dinner, another habit I couldn't seem to break, even though Erin had suggested we might simplify things by ordering in more often. Lily slipped into the kitchen and wrapped her arms around my waist. Grandma, can I tell you a secret? I set down the knife I'd been using to chop carrots and turned to face her. Of course, sweetheart. Always. She looked over her shoulder first, a gesture that broke my heart a little. I heard Daddy on the phone with Dr. Martin. He was saying you were getting confused about money, but that's not true. Is it? Dr. Martin was my primary care physician. I'd been seeing him for 15 years. No, Lily, that's not true. She frowned, her small face so serious. Why would Daddy lie to the doctor? I crouched down to her level, my knees protesting. Sometimes grown-ups think they're doing the right thing, even when they're not. Your daddy loves me very much, and he might think he's helping. But he's not helping if he's lying. That's right. I brushed a strand of hair from her face. And it's very important that we always tell the truth, especially to doctors. She nodded. Considering this, then, with the straightforward clarity that only children possess, she asked, "Are you going to be mad at Daddy?" I hesitated. How to explain the complicated emotions swirling inside me, the hurt, the betrayal, the fear, but also the understanding how to explain that love and anger can exist side by side, that protection can sometimes look like confrontation. "I'm not mad," I said finally. "I'm disappointed, and I'm going to have to make sure the doctor knows the truth." "Will you yell at Daddy?" Her eyes were wide. I shook my head. "No, sweetheart, but I will talk to him. Sometimes talking is harder than yelling." She seemed satisfied with this, and skipped off to the living room, the burden of her secret now shared. That night, Lily crawled into bed with me just after 9, clutching her favorite blanket and looking unusually serious. She didn't ask to watch cartoons or request a snack. She just climbed under the covers and curled up beside me like she used to when she was smaller, back when she called me Gamma and believed the moon followed us home. I put my arm around her shoulders. Couldn't sleep. She shook her head against my side. Mommy and Daddy were talking again. My chest tightened. I waited. "They think you're not thinking right," she whispered. "Daddy said if you don't sign the papers, he'll tell your doctor your brain is broken." The words settled into the room like dust, impossible to sweep away. I felt my hands go cold. I didn't move. Lily kept talking, her voice a hush in the dark. "He said doctors believe stuff like that when grown-ups say it." I closed my eyes, but it didn't help. My thoughts were loud now, clattering through every memory of recent weeks, every strange look, every time Aaron had said, "Are you sure you didn't forget?" or laughed too easily when I hesitated mid-sentence. Lily rolled to face me. "I don't think your brain is broken." "I don't either," I said softly, brushing the hair from her forehead. She looked up at me, her eyes too wise for 6. "Are they going to make you leave?" "No, sweetheart." My voice held steady, but my pulse didn't. "They can't make me do anything I don't want to." Lily tucked her head under my arm again. "Good. I don't want you to go anywhere." I stared at the ceiling, my fingers gently stroking her back. But I wasn't there in the room anymore. I was inside a future I hadn't dared imagine before. A future where my own son might try to take my name off everything I had built while convincing himself it was love. They weren't just planning to control me. They were preparing to erase me quietly, legally, with forms and witnesses and signatures. I didn't sleep that night. Lily did, her breath even and warm beside me. But I lay awake until the sky turned pale. I kept hearing Thomas's voice from a conversation we'd had the month before his heart gave out. "Promise me, Beverly," he'd said, his hand warm on mine. "If it ever comes down to choosing between being nice and being safe, choose safe." That morning, I called Eleanor again. This time, I didn't hesitate. Rachel Simmons' office smelled of lemon polish and old books. It was a reassuring smell, substantial and permanent, like the law itself was supposed to be. "So," she said, after I'd explained everything, "they're planning to request power of attorney, possibly claim diminished capacity, and they've already made unauthorized changes to your accounts." "Yes," she nodded, making notes in a clean, spiral-bound notebook. Her handwriting was precise, just like her appearance: crisp white shirt, dark blazer, not a hair out of place. "The good news is, you're here before they've made any formal moves," she said. "The bad news is, they've been laying groundwork, talking to your doctor, establishing a pattern of concern about your mental state." "Can they do that?" "Just tell my doctor I'm confused when I'm not." Rachel's expression tightened. "Unfortunately, yes, adult children often report concerns about aging parents. It's seen as responsible caregiving, even when it's not warranted." She tapped her pen against the notepad. We need to be proactive. First, we need to secure your assets and revoke any access they currently have. For the next 2 hours, we went through every account, every investment, every piece of property I owned. Rachel helped me make a list of immediate actions: change passwords, revoke access permissions, update account security questions, schedule an appointment with my doctor to establish my mental competence. What about my will? I asked. Thomas and I made one when he got sick. We should review it, Rachel said. Make sure it still reflects your wishes. I nodded, thinking of the document tucked away in Thomas's desk. It divides everything equally among my 3 children, but now you're concerned about Jason's intentions, Rachel finished for me. Yes. The word felt heavy in my mouth. But I don't want to punish him. He's still my son. Rachel's eyes softened slightly. This isn't about punishment, Mrs. Holt. It's about protection, yours and your assets. We can add provisions to ensure your independence is protected and that any distribution is handled fairly. As we wrapped up, Rachel handed me her card with her cell phone number written on the back. Call me anytime, and Mrs. Holt, don't sign anything without talking to me first. I nodded, gathering my purse. Thank you. One more thing, she said, her voice gentle but firm. You mentioned your granddaughter has been telling you about conversations she's overheard. It might be worth documenting those. Write down what she says, when she says it. You think I'll need it? Rachel's expression was careful. I hope not. But in these situations, it's better to have evidence you don't need than to need evidence you don't have. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed in my purse. A text from Jason, Mom. Thinking of stopping by tonight. Need to talk about some things. Nothing serious. Love you. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to confront him immediately, to ask him directly what he was planning, but Rachel's voice echoed in my head. Don't show your hand too early, I typed back. Sorry, honey. Already have plans with Eleanor tonight, tomorrow. His response came quickly. Sure, Mom. Have fun. I sat in my car for a long moment, the weight of the lies between us settling on my shoulders like an invisible cloak. The Jason I raised, the boy who used to bring me dandelions and handmade cards, who cried when his father died and held my hand at the funeral. Where had that son gone? Or had I simply failed to see who he really was all along on the drive home? I stopped at the bank. The manager, Mr. Patel, had known me for 20 years. His father had been the manager before him, back when Thomas and I took out our mortgage. Mrs. Holt, he said warmly. What can I do for you today? I explained what I needed to review recent account activity, revoke Aaron's access, and change my online banking credentials. Mr. Patel's expression remained professional, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. Of course, he said. Let's take a look. He pulled up my accounts on his computer, turned the screen so I could see it. There's been quite a bit of activity recently, he said carefully. I leaned forward, scanning the transactions. Several large withdrawals over the past 3 months, all made in person at a branch across town. Money moved from my savings to a joint account I hadn't known existed. A recurring monthly transfer to an investment account in Jason and Aaron's names. I didn't authorize these, I said, my voice steady despite the churning in my stomach. Mr. Patel nodded. Mrs. Holt, I should inform you that Mrs. Aaron Holt presented documents indicating she had power of attorney for your financial matters. What documents? He turned to his computer, typed something, then swiveled the screen back toward me. This form was submitted 3 months ago. There it was, a power of attorney form with what appeared to be my signature at the bottom, except it wasn't my signature. It was close, eerily close, but the loop on the Y was wrong, and I always crossed my T's with a slight upward angle, a habit from my teaching days. That's not my signature, I said. Mr. Patel's expression remained neutral, but he straightened in his chair. I see. In that case, Mrs. Holt, we need to take immediate action. For the next hour, We methodically shut down access, filed fraud reports, changed passwords, and set up new security protocols. By the time I left, my accounts were secure, but my heart was heavier than when I'd arrived. They hadn't just been planning to take control, they had already started. On the drive home, my phone rang. Eleanor. "How did it go with Rachel?" she asked without preamble. "Good. She's helping me secure everything." I paused, debating whether to share what I'd just discovered. "Eleanor, they forged my signature. They've been taking money for months." Her sharp intake of breath was the only sign of surprise. "How much?" "Almost $70,000. Jesus, Beverly. I know. What are you going to do?" I watched the familiar streets pass by my window, the neighborhood I'd called home for over 4 decades. Protect what's mine, and then decide what kind of relationship I want with my son going forward. "If any," Eleanor added. "If any," I agreed. The words painful but necessary. When I pulled into the driveway, Sophia was waiting on the front steps. Her face was pale, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "Jason called," she said as I approached. "He knows you went to see a lawyer." I froze. "How?" "Someone from the bank called him when you changed the account access. They thought he should know since he's listed as your emergency contact." I closed my eyes briefly. Of course. Small towns, well-meaning people. The assumption that family always has your best interests at heart. "What did he say?" I asked. Sophia's voice was barely above a whisper. "He said we needed to have the family meeting tonight, not tomorrow. Tonight." She looked up at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and resolve. "He sounded angry, Mom, really angry." I reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "It's going to be okay." "Is it because it feels like everything's about to fall apart?" I thought of Thomas's words again, choose safe, and I thought of Rachel's advice, the security measures we'd put in place, the evidence we'd gathered. "Not fall apart," I said finally. "Change. Everything's about to change." I spent the afternoon preparing for the confrontation I knew was coming. I called Rachel Simmons to let her know about the forged signature at the bank and the hastily arranged family meeting. "Do you want me to be there?" she asked. I considered it. Having legal representation would send a clear message, but it might also escalate the situation beyond repair. "No," I decided. "This first conversation needs to be family. But I'll record it, like you suggested." "Good," she said. "Remember, stay calm, stick to facts, and don't sign anything." After hanging up, I set up my phone to record and placed it on the kitchen counter, partially hidden by the fruit bowl. Then I made tea Thomas's old remedy for stressful situations. "Tea doesn't solve problems," he used to say, "but it gives you something to do with your hands while you think." My hands weren't as steady as I would have liked. As the afternoon light began to fade, I heard the front door open. Jason's voice called out, "Mom, you home?" "In the kitchen," I answered, keeping my voice neutral. He appeared in the doorway, still in his work-clothes suit pants, white shirt with sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. Behind him, Erin lingered, her face a careful mask of concern. "Mom," Jason started, a forced smile on his face. "We need to talk." "I know," I said simply. He faltered slightly, thrown by my directness. "Okay, good. Let's sit down, shall we?" We moved to the dining room table, the one Thomas had built when we first moved in. Solid oak that had witnessed 4 decades of family meals, homework sessions, and holiday gatherings. Sophia slipped in quietly, taking a seat beside me. Erin's eyes flashed with irritation at her presence, but she said nothing. "Where's Lily?" I asked. "At a play date." Erin answered quickly. "This is an adult conversation." I nodded, relieved that my granddaughter wouldn't witness what was about to unfold. Jason cleared his throat. "Mom, I got a call from the bank today. They said you were making changes." "Yes," I said. "I was securing my accounts." His brow furrowed. Securing them from what? From unauthorized access. I looked directly at Erin as I said this. She didn't flinch, but her fingers tightened around her purse strap. Mom. Jason's voice took on that patient tone I'd grown to hate, the one that suggested I was confused or difficult. No one's trying to access your accounts without permission. We've been helping you manage things. That's all. By forging my signature on a power of attorney document. The room went still. Jason's face paled slightly, while Erin maintained her composed expression, though a muscle twitched in her jaw. That's a serious accusation, Erin said, her voice cool. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. I kept my voice steady. Mr. Patel showed me the document today. That wasn't my signature. Jason leaned forward, hands clasped in front of him. Mom, you signed that. Don't you remember? It was right after your fall last winter. I stared at him, stunned by the ease of his lie. I never fell last winter, and I never signed any power of attorney. Jason exchanged a glance with Erin. See, this is exactly what we're worried about. Your memory. My memory is fine, I interrupted, my patience fraying. What's not fine is discovering that my son and daughter-in-law have been systematically trying to take control of my finances. That's not what this is, Jason insisted, his voice rising. We're trying to protect you. From what? From managing my own money, from living independently in my own home, from mistakes. Jason shot back. From scammers targeting seniors, from forgetting to pay bills, from all the things that happen when people get older. I felt Sophia shift beside me, her hand finding mine under the table. Jason, she said quietly, Mom doesn't forget to pay bills. She's not confused. Jason turned on her, his expression hardening. Stay out of this. Sophia, you've been living rent-free in Mom's garage apartment for years. You're hardly in a position to lecture anyone about financial responsibility. Sophia flinched but didn't back down. That's not fair, and it's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what's best for Mom, Erin interjected smoothly. Beverly, we only want to help. You've done so much for this family. Now it's our turn to take care of you. By stealing from me. The words came out sharper than I intended. Erin's composure cracked, just for a moment. We haven't stolen anything. $70,000. Erin, transferred from my accounts to yours over the past 3 months. What would you call that? Jason's face had gone from pale to flushed. That money was for Lily's college fund and renovations to make this house safer for you. We were going to tell you once everything was set up. So you took it first and planned to tell me later. We didn't want to worry you with the details. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Jason, I raised you better than this. I taught you that you don't take what isn't yours. His expression darkened. And you taught me that family takes care of family. Dad left you well provided for, and all we're trying to do is make sure that money is used wisely. It's my money to use as I see fit, even if that means wasting it or getting scammed out of it or letting it sit in low-interest accounts until you die. The bluntness of his words, until you die, hung in the air between us. So that's what this is about, I said softly. You're planning for my death. We're planning for your future, Erin corrected, and for Lily's, for all of us. I looked at my son, searching for the boy I'd raised in the man before me. Jason, why didn't you just ask me if you needed money for Lily's education or for renovations? Why didn't you come to me directly? Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, perhaps, or shame. But then Erin placed her hand on his arm, and his expression hardened again. Because you'd say no, he said flatly. You've been getting more stubborn, more set in your ways. You keep saying you'll think about it whenever we bring up making changes to the house or moving to a place with better care facilities. Because this is my home, I said. Thomas and I built our life here. I don't want to leave. But it's not practical anymore. Jason's frustration burst through. This place is too big for you. The stairs are dangerous. The maintenance is too much. And all that money you have, it could be doing so much more. For whom? I asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately, and in that silence, I heard everything I needed to know. Jason, I said, my voice gentler now. Are you in financial trouble? His eyes widened slightly, then darted away. That's not what this is about. Isn't it? I pressed. Because taking money from my accounts, forging my signature, these are desperate actions. What's going on? Aaron stood abruptly. This isn't productive. We came here to discuss your care, not our finances. But Jason remained seated. His shoulders suddenly slumped. The real estate market crashed, he said quietly. Aaron's business is underwater. We've been trying to keep it afloat. But, Jason. Aaron's voice was sharp with warning. He ignored her. And I made some investments that didn't work out. We're behind on the mortgage. Lily's school tuition is due next month. So you decided to take my money without asking. It wasn't a question. We were going to pay it back, he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Once the market turned around, once Aaron closed some bigger properties, and in the meantime, you thought you'd convince me I was losing my memory, make me doubt myself so I'd sign over control. The hurt in my voice was palpable now. Jason at least had the decency to look ashamed. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, Sophia said. You told me Mom was getting confused. You said the same thing to her doctor. I was concerned. Jason protested. You were lying, I said simply. Erin was pacing now, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. This is getting us nowhere, Beverly. We prepared some papers that would help simplify things for everyone. She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder. I'm not signing anything, I said firmly. You haven't even looked at them. I don't need to. Erin's carefully maintained composure was cracking. This is exactly the kind of stubborn behavior we're talking about. You won't even consider what's best for the family. My financial security is what's best for this family, I replied. And I've already taken steps to ensure it. Jason's head snapped up. What does that mean? It means I've spoken with a lawyer, I've secured my accounts, and I've reported the fraudulent power of attorney. The color drained from his face. You reported us, your own family. I reported a crime, I corrected. One committed against me by people I trusted. Erin's voice turned to cold. Do you have any idea what you've done? This could ruin us. You were ruining yourselves long before I got involved, I said. And you were planning to drag me down with you. Jason stood now, his face a storm of emotions. So that's it. You're just going to cut us off, leave us to drown while you sit on a fortune you don't even need. The accusation stung, but I held my ground. I never said I wouldn't help you. I said I wouldn't let you steal from me. There's a difference. What difference does it make? He demanded. It's all going to be ours eventually anyway. And there it was, the ugly truth at the heart of everything. In their minds, my money was already theirs. I was just an inconvenient gatekeeper, stubbornly clinging to what they saw as their future inheritance. Not necessarily, I said quietly. A tense silence filled the room. What's that supposed to mean? Erin asked, her voice dangerous. It means I'm revising my will. And how I choose to distribute my assets will depend on what happens next. Jason stared at me, disbelief written across his face. You're threatening to disinherit us, your own son. I'm reminding you that actions have consequences, I corrected. I raised you better than this. Jason, your father would be heartbroken to see what you've become. He flinched as if I'd slapped him. Don't bring Dad into this. Why not this house? These accounts. They're his legacy too. Do you think he worked his entire life so his son could steal from his widow? Jason's face contorted with a mixture of rage and shame. This is Sophia's doing, isn't it? She's always been jealous of what Erin and I have. She's turning you against us. Sophia started to protest, but I placed a hand on her arm. This isn't about Sophia. This is about your choices. Jason, your decisions. My decisions? He laughed bitterly. What about yours? You've been holding this family's finances hostage for years, doling out help when it suits you, making us beg for every dollar. His words hit me like a physical blow. Was that how he saw my support? As control, as manipulation. I never asked you to beg, I said softly. I gave freely, because I love you. Then why stop now? Aaron demanded. If you love Jason, if you love Lily, why would you cut us off when we need you most? I looked at her, this woman who had entered our family 15 years ago, who had once brought joy to my son's life, but now seemed to fuel his worst instincts. I'm not cutting anyone off, I said firmly. But from now on, any financial help will come with transparency, with honesty, with respect. Jason shook his head. This isn't over, he said, his voice low. We still need to discuss your living situation, your health care. No, I interrupted. We don't. Those decisions remain mine to make. For now, Aaron muttered. The implied threat hung in the air between us. I think you should leave, Sophia said, standing beside me now. Both of you. Jason looked at his sister, then at me, a mix of emotions crossing his face. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the sun I remembered, but then it was gone, replaced by cold determination. Fine, he said, but this conversation isn't over. As they gathered their things, Aaron paused in the doorway. You know we only want what's best for you. Beverly. No, I said, meeting her gaze steadily. You want what's best for you. There's a difference. After they left, Sophia and I sat in silence at the dining room table. The house felt emptier somehow, as if something fundamental had shifted within its walls. Do you think they'll back off? Sophia asked finally. I thought about the determination in Aaron's eyes, the desperation in Jason's voice. No, I said honestly. I think they're just getting started. Jason texted me the next morning, Mom. We should try again. Family dinner Saturday. Just the 5 of us. Don't worry about cooking. We've got it covered. He added a smiley face, which somehow made it worse. I showed the message to Sophia over breakfast. She frowned. It's a trap. Probably, I agreed. But refusing would only escalate things. So we go, but we prepare. For the next few days, I moved methodically through my life, shoring up defenses I never thought I'd need against my own family. I met with Dr. Martin, explaining my concerns about Jason's calls to his office. The doctor was apologetic and disturbed, making careful notes in my file about my clear cognitive function. I visited Mr. Patel again, setting up additional security measures on my accounts. I spoke with Rachel Simmons daily, sending her copies of all documents and recordings, and I watched Lily closely whenever she visited, searching for signs of distress. She seemed oblivious to the tension, but one afternoon, while coloring at the kitchen table, she looked up suddenly. Grandma, are you and Daddy fighting? I set down the dish I was drying. Why do you ask that, sweetheart? Because he said you're being stubborn, and Mommy said you might need special doctors. Her small face scrunched with worry. Are you sick? I sat beside her, taking her small hands in mine. No, Lily, I'm not sick. Your daddy and I have different ideas about some grown-up things, that's all. She studied me intently. Is that why Mommy put away all the pictures? What pictures? The ones of you, in our house. She put them in a box in the attic. A chill ran through me. When did she do that? Lily shrugged. Last week. She said we needed to redecorate. I forced a smile. Well, redecorating can be fun. Lily went back to her coloring, but her words stayed with me. Another piece in a puzzle I was beginning to understand all too clearly. By Saturday evening, the dining table had been set with cloth napkins, real glasses, candles flickering low like it was a celebration. Jason brought in takeout from that overpriced bistro downtown and announced it like he'd cooked it himself. Erin wore a dress I'd never seen before, expensive looking, with a forced casualness that didn't suit her. Sophia sat stiffly at the far end of the table, barely touching her food. Lily was at a friend's house, conveniently out of the way, We made it through salad before Erin put her fork down with exaggerated gentleness. "Mom," she said, the words still strange on her lips after all these years. "We've been thinking a lot about our conversation earlier this week." I nodded, my face deliberately blank. "I have too." "Good," Jason chimed in, "because we think we got off on the wrong foot. We didn't explain ourselves well." "You explained yourselves perfectly," I said. "But please, continue." Jason and Erin exchanged a glance. "The thing is, Mom," Jason began, "we're worried about you. This house, the bills, everything. It must be overwhelming." "It's not, but it could become overwhelming," Erin pressed. "And we want to be prepared before that happens." I took a sip of water. "Prepared how?" Erin reached into her tote and pulled out a manila folder different from the one earlier in the week, but with the same intent written all over it. "These are just some simple documents," she said lightly. "Power of attorney stuff. Nothing changes unless you want it to. It's just in case, really." I picked up the papers, turned a few pages, and let my eyes move across the words without reading them. I let my hands shake just slightly as I set them down. "I see." Erin softened her voice. "There's no pressure. Mom, we just care about you. We want to make sure you're protected." "Protected," I repeated. "That's an interesting word choice." "What do you mean?" Jason asked, wariness creeping into his tone. "Well, I've been thinking about protection too, about safety, about family." "That's good," Jason said, relaxing slightly. "That's exactly what we want to talk about." "Is it?" I set down my napkin. "Because I've been wondering what kind of protection I need from people who forge my signature, who take my money without permission, who tell my doctor I'm confused when I'm not." The room went still. Sophia sat up straighter, her eyes fixed on her plate. "Mom," Jason began, his voice strained. "We've been through this. We were trying to help. By lying about me, by stealing from me, by attempting to declare me incompetent." "No one's declaring you incompetent," Erin said quickly. "Really?" "Because Lily told me you've already packed away my photos, like I'm already gone." Erin's composure slipped. "That child needs to learn about privacy." "That child," I said, my voice deadly quiet, "is the only honest person in your household." Jason set his glass down too hard, water sloshing onto the tablecloth. "This isn't productive. We're trying to have a reasonable conversation about your future." "My future is not yours to decide," I said firmly, "and this family dinner isn't about my well-being. It's about your financial problems." Jason's face flushed. "You have no idea what we're dealing with." "Actually, I do." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is a notice of foreclosure on your house. It came to my post office box yesterday." The color drained from Jason's face. "How did you—" "You used my address for some of your accounts, probably because your credit was already compromised." I unfolded the paper. "You're 3 months behind on payments. The bank is moving to foreclose." Erin's hand was white-knuckled around her wineglass. "This is none of your business." "It became my business when you decided to solve your problems with my money," I replied. "When you decided that my resources were the answer to your poor decisions." "Poor decisions." Jason's voice rose. "We took a chance on Erin's business. The market collapsed. It could have happened to anyone." "The business, yes, but what about the gambling debts?" The room went completely silent. Even Sophia looked up, shocked. "What are you talking about?" Erin asked. But her voice lacked conviction. I pulled out another paper, a bank statement showing multiple large withdrawals at a casino in Atlantic City. "This is from your joint account, the one you've been transferring my money into." Jason's face had gone from red to ashen. "You had no right to look at our accounts." "I had every right to track where my stolen money was going," I corrected him. "And it wasn't all going to Lily's education or house renovations, was it? How long have you had a gambling problem, Jason?" He didn't answer, his eyes fixed on the table. 3 years, Erin said finally, her voice tight. "Since his father died." I closed my eyes briefly, pain washing through me. Thomas had struggled with gambling in his younger years, had worked hard to overcome it, had sworn he'd never pass that burden to our children. "Why didn't you come to me?" I asked softly. "I could have helped. We could have found you treatment. Like Dad's." Jason's laugh was bitter. 12-step meetings and constant vigilance. "No thanks." "So instead you decided to take my money to fund your addiction." "It's not that simple," Aaron interjected. "The business really is struggling. The gambling. It was just Jason's way of trying to dig us out. One big win could have solved everything." "Except there never is just one big win," I said. "Thomas taught me that much." Jason stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "So what now?" "You've made your point. We're terrible people. We failed. Is that what you wanted to hear?" "What I want," I said carefully, "is for my son to get help, for my daughter-in-law to be honest with me, and for both of you to understand that my money is not the solution to your problems." "So you're cutting us off," Aaron said flatly. "I'm offering a different kind of help," I corrected. "I'll pay for addiction treatment. I'll help you negotiate with the bank. I'll even contribute to Lily's education fund directly, not through you." "But you won't give us access to your accounts," Jason said. "You won't sign the power of attorney." "No," I agreed. "I won't." Jason and Aaron exchanged a long look, one of those silent conversations that couples develop over years together. Finally, Jason sat back down. "And if we refuse your terms?" he asked quietly. "Then you're on your own," I said, my heart breaking even as I said the words. "I love you, Jason. You're my son. But I won't enable behavior that hurts both of us." For a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the boy I'd raised. A flash of recognition, of shame, of the values Thomas and I had tried to instill. But then Aaron placed her hand on his arm, and his expression hardened again. "We'll think about it," he said coldly. I nodded, my phone angled slightly between the candle and the bread basket, recording every word. "That's all I ask," I said. After dinner, I thanked them politely and promised to consider their concerns. I even smiled. Then I walked straight upstairs and locked the door. By morning, I had another appointment with Rachel Simmons. By noon the next day, I was sitting across from Rachel Simmons at her law office. She greeted me with a firm handshake and didn't once speak to me like I was fragile. That alone made me trust her more. I gave her everything: the recording from the dinner, the bank statements showing Jason's gambling activities, the foreclosure notice, and a list of my current accounts. Rachel listened without interruption, taking notes in a clean spiral-bound notebook. When I was done, she leaned back and said, "You're not paranoid, Mrs. Holt. You're prudent." "I feel like I'm betraying my own son," I admitted, the words heavy in my mouth. "You're protecting yourself," she corrected. "There's a difference." We spent the afternoon reviewing my will. Nothing dramatic. I'd already divided things equally among my 3 children. But now we added clauses. Clear language protecting my independence. Instructions should anyone attempt to contest my capacity. I revoked an old medical proxy Jason had once pushed me to sign. Instead, I named Sophia as co-decision maker with stipulations. If she declined, control would pass to my attorney, not another family member. When I told Rachel I'd chosen Sophia, she raised an eyebrow. "She hesitated," I said. "But she didn't lie. That's worth something." Next, I called the bank, I changed passwords, updated alert settings, added 2-factor verification to every account. I removed Jason and Aaron from an old shared access line they hadn't touched in years, but which I hadn't forgotten was there. I closed the savings account Thomas and I once used for emergencies and opened a new one under my name alone. When I got home, Eleanor was waiting with her usual iced tea and that look she gets when she wants to say, "I told you so," but knows better. Instead, she pulled out a folder and laid it flat on the kitchen table. "I printed transcripts from your phone recording," she said, "in triplicate. We worked until dusk, labeling, cataloging, placing copies into separate envelopes. I tucked one into the back of the spice rack, another into my desk drawer, a third went into the safe before I went to bed. I stood in the doorway of the guest room, my granddaughter's room, whenever she stayed over and imagined her sleeping there. One hand curled beneath her cheek. The house was silent, but something in the air had shifted. The next time they came, I'd be ready. The petition came 2 weeks later. Jason had filed for legal guardianship, citing concerns about my memory, my judgment, and my increased dependence on others. He attached a letter signed by Aaron, vague and self-serving, and a list of so-called incidents, none of which had ever happened. I didn't cry when I read it. I didn't even feel angry. What I felt was clarity. Rachel moved quickly. We gathered everything: my updated medical evaluation from Dr. Martin, notarized bank records, the recordings from our confrontations, even a letter from Lily's teacher confirming I'd picked her up on time every day the previous month. We had dates, details, and enough documentation to sink their case before it reached the judge's bench. The most painful part was watching Lily caught in the middle. Jason and Aaron stopped bringing her to visit, citing concerns about her safety in my home. My weekly phone calls with her became stilted, with Aaron hovering in the background, monitoring every word. "Grandma," Lily whispered during one call, "are you in trouble?" "No, sweetheart," I assured her. "Grown-ups sometimes have disagreements, but I'm fine, and I love you very much." "Daddy says you're confused." My heart ached. "What do you think, Lily, when you talk to me? Do I seem confused?" "No," she said immediately. "You remember everything." "That's right, and I'll always remember how much I love you." There was a rustling sound. Then Aaron's voice came on the line. "That's enough for today. Beverly, Lily has homework." The call disconnected before I could say goodbye. 2 days before the hearing, Sophia came to my room, her face pale in the dim light. "Jason called me," she said. "He wants me to testify on their behalf." I set down the book I'd been reading. "And what did you tell him?" "That I wouldn't lie." She twisted her hands in her lap. "He said I was betraying the family, that I was choosing you over Lily's future." "He's desperate," I said gently. "He's trying to manipulate you." "I know, but what if fighting them just makes everything worse? What if we lose Lily forever?" I reached out and took her hands in mine. "We won't. The truth will come out, Sophia, and when it does, we'll find a way forward that keeps Lily in our lives." She nodded, but the worry remained etched in her face. "I'm scared, Mom." "Me too," I admitted, "but we'll get through this." The day of the hearing dawned clear and cold. I dressed carefully, a navy blue suit Thomas had always liked. Sensible shoes, minimal jewelry. I wanted to project dignity, competence, calm. Rachel met us at the courthouse, her briefcase bulging with documents. "Remember," she said as we walked toward the hearing room, "let me do most of the talking. Answer questions directly and honestly. Don't get emotional if you can help it." Jason and Aaron were already seated when we entered, along with their attorney, a sleek man in an expensive suit. Jason wouldn't meet my eyes, but Aaron stared boldly, her expression a mixture of defiance and calculation. Sophia sat beside me, shoulders tight but steady. When they called her to testify, her voice shook only once. "My mother is of sound mind," she stated clearly. "She manages her finances, maintains her home, and takes excellent care of her granddaughter when permitted. There is absolutely no justification for removing her independence." Jason's attorney tried to paint her as biased. "You live rent-free in your mother's property, correct? Wouldn't you have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo?" Sophia's chin lifted slightly. "I've offered to pay rent many times. My mother refused. And if you're suggesting I would lie about her mental capacity for financial gain, you're wrong. But you've been financially dependent on your mother for years." "I asked for help," Sophia said, her voice stronger now. "I didn't take it without permission." When it was Jason's turn, He presented a carefully crafted narrative of concern, noticing small memory lapses, finding unpaid bills which didn't exist, observing moments of confusion which never happened. "We're just worried about her safety," he concluded, his voice dripping with sincerity. "We want to make sure she's protected." "From what exactly?" Rachel asked during cross-examination. Jason hesitated. "From the vulnerabilities that come with aging." "Specific vulnerabilities? Mr. Holt, what specific issues have you observed that would warrant removing your mother's legal autonomy?" He listed vague complaints, misplaced keys, forgotten appointments, difficulty managing finances. "And yet," Rachel responded, "Mrs. Holt's bank accounts show consistent, appropriate management. Her doctor has certified her cognitive function as excellent. Her home is well maintained. Can you provide any documented evidence of these alleged issues?" Jason couldn't, of course, because there wasn't any. When it was my turn, I stood straight. I told the truth plainly. I said nothing to humiliate my son, just enough to show the court I knew what was mine and who I was. "I love my son," I concluded. "I always will. But love doesn't require surrendering my independence to someone who has already demonstrated willingness to take what isn't theirs." The judge didn't deliberate long. He denied the petition in full, citing lack of evidence and troubling indications of financial impropriety on Jason and Aaron's part. He even suggested they might want to consult with their own attorney about the forged power of attorney document, as it could potentially constitute criminal activity. I watched Jason's face drain as the ruling was read. His eyes didn't fill with tears. They filled with something worse realization. The fight they started was over, but the fracture they created would not fade so quickly. Outside the courthouse, Jason approached me, Aaron conspicuously absent. "Mom," he began, his voice strained, "I never meant for it to go this far." I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, loved, taught, and felt a profound sadness. "What did you mean, then, Jason? What was the endgame here?" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so like his father it made my heart ache. "We're in trouble, Mom, deeper than you know. The gambling. It's worse than I admitted. I owe people money, dangerous people. So you thought taking my money was the solution, declaring me incompetent. I don't know what I thought anymore." He looked genuinely lost, and for the first time since this began, I saw my son again, not the manipulator, but the scared boy beneath the man. "What happens now?" I considered him for a long moment. "That depends on you. Are you ready to get help? Real help." He hesitated, then nodded. "I don't have much choice." "You always have a choice, Jason. That's what I tried to teach you. Would you help me find a program?" It was an olive branch, small and tentative. I took it cautiously. "Yes, but my help comes with conditions now. Complete transparency, regular check-ins, and you make amends to Lily for putting her in the middle of this. And Aaron," I thought of my daughter-in-law, of her cold determination, her calculating methods. "That's between you and her, but I won't have her in my home until she acknowledges what she did and apologizes sincerely." He nodded, accepting the terms. "Can I still see you? Talk to you?" "Of course. You're my son. Jason, that doesn't change, but our relationship will be different now. It has to be." As he walked away, shoulders hunched against the cold, I felt a mixture of grief and relief. The battle was over, but the war had left casualties: trust, innocence, the easy comfort of family. Later that evening, I sat in the garden alone, watching the light fall across the tomato vines, and began to wonder what it would mean to start over. Not completely. Of course, I was 70 years old. My life had been built in this house, with these memories, among these people, but something had shifted irreversibly, and I needed to acknowledge that change. I called Eleanor. "I'm thinking of selling the house," I said without preamble. She didn't express surprise. Eleanor never wasted energy on predictable reactions. About time, she said instead. Where will you go? I'm not sure yet. Somewhere smaller, simpler. With me, Sophia said from the doorway. I hadn't heard her approach. Whatever you decide, I'm coming with you. I turned to look at her. This daughter who had always been quieter than her siblings, less demanding, easier to overlook. You don't have to do that, I told her. I know, she said, coming to sit beside me. But I want to. We take care of each other, right? That's what family does. Family. The word held different weight now. What about your job, your life here? She shrugged. I can freelance from anywhere. And my life? She paused, looking out at the garden. My life has been on hold for a while now. Maybe it's time for both of us to start fresh. The house sold faster than I expected. It had good bones, the agent said. I smiled at that. I'd spent decades holding those bones together, even after Thomas was gone. I packed quietly, sorting through a lifetime in pieces his cufflinks, Lily's finger paintings, the old tea tins that still smelled faintly of cinnamon. Some things I gave away, others I carefully wrapped and boxed for the new place. Sophia and I found a duplex in a small community 20 minutes away, close enough for Lily to visit, far enough to feel like a fresh start. 2 adjoining units with a shared garden in the back. Independence with proximity. It felt right. The hardest part was Lily. Jason had begun treatment for his gambling addiction, a residential program that would keep him away for at least 90 days. Aaron, left to manage alone, had reluctantly agreed to let Lily visit on weekends. Grandma, why did you move? Lily asked on her first visit, exploring the new space with the frank curiosity of childhood. Didn't you like our old house? I sat with her on the small patio, watching as birds visited the feeder Sophia had installed. I love that house, I said carefully. But sometimes, even when you love something, it's time for a change. She considered this, her small face serious. Like when you outgrow your favorite shoes. I smiled. Something like that. Mommy says you and Daddy had a fight about money. My heart sank at the bluntness of it. It was more complicated than that, sweetheart. Are you still mad at Daddy? I chose my words carefully. I'm sad about some choices your daddy made. But he's getting help now, and that makes me proud of him. And Mommy? The question was innocent, but the answer was not. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that her mother had actively participated in a scheme to take advantage of her grandmother? That she had been willing to declare me incompetent for financial gain? Your mommy and I have some things to work through, I said finally. But we both love you very much. That will never change. Lily seemed satisfied with this. She helped me plant tomatoes in the narrow garden bed out back. Thomas would have teased me about the spacing, said I never gave anything room to breathe. But they came up anyway, slow and stubborn like me. Jason completed his 90-day program and joined an outpatient group. He came to visit, awkward and tentative at first, but gradually finding his way back to something resembling a relationship. Not what we had before that was gone forever, but something new, built on honesty rather than expectation. Erin was another matter. She refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing, maintaining that they had only been trying to help. When the bank began foreclosure proceedings on their house, she blamed me for not intervening. When Jason insisted on continuing treatment rather than immediately returning to work, she called it a betrayal. Their marriage didn't survive his recovery. By the time autumn came, they were separated, sharing custody of Lily while living apart. I enabled her too, Jason admitted during one of his visits. I let her push for more and more, never setting boundaries because it was easier to go along. I was as addicted to avoiding conflict as I was to gambling. I recognized the language of recovery in his words, but appreciated the insight nonetheless. And now, he looked around my new home, smaller but warm, filled with only the things that mattered most to me. Now I'm learning to live differently, to want differently. Lily adapted to the new arrangements with the resilience of childhood. She spent weekends with me, weekdays alternating between her parents. She brought drawings, stories from school, and always insisted on checking the plants. She called them our tomatoes. I let her. Sophia flourished in unexpected ways, with space of her own, but support nearby. She took on more freelance work, joined a local writers' group, even began dating someone she met at the community center. She seemed lighter somehow, as if she too had been carrying a burden she could now set down. "You know," she said one evening as we shared dinner on the patio, "I spent so many years feeling like the family disappointment, not as successful as Jason, not as confident as Aaron, just taking up space in the garage apartment." "You were never a disappointment," I told her firmly. "I know that now, but it took all of this." She gestured vaguely, encompassing the events of the past months. "For me to really believe it." I understood what she meant. Sometimes clarity comes at a terrible price. 1 year after the court hearing, I received a letter from Erin. I recognized her handwriting on the envelope and almost didn't open it, but curiosity or perhaps hope won out. Inside was a single page, her precise handwriting covering both sides. "Beverly, I've written this letter a dozen times in my head. None of them seemed adequate. How do you apologize for attempting to take someone's autonomy, for lying about their mental capacity, for putting a child in the middle of adult conflicts? I could offer explanations. The pressure of failing business, the fear as Jason's gambling spiraled out of control, the panic of impending financial ruin. But these aren't excuses. They're just context for terrible choices I made willingly. The truth is simpler and harder to admit. I saw you as a resource, not a person, a means to solve our problems. I convinced myself it was for your own good, but that was a lie I told to justify what I wanted. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for a relationship. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I did. Therapy has been enlightening, painful but necessary. Lily misses you. She always will. Whatever happens between us, I won't keep her from you again. That was cruel and wrong, with respect and regret. Erin." I read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. It wasn't an olive branch exactly, more like an acknowledgement across a divide that might never be fully bridged. But it was something, a beginning. Perhaps, 2 years after selling the house, my life had found a new rhythm, simpler, quieter, but with its own satisfactions. I took a painting class at the community center, joined a book club, volunteered at the library reading to children. Lily visited every weekend, her presence filling the house with the noise and energy only a child can bring. At 8, she was all long limbs and curious questions, her mind a sponge for information about everything from dinosaurs to deep-sea creatures. "Grandma," she asked one Saturday as we worked in the garden, "what was Grandpa Thomas like?" I sat back on my heels, surprised by the question. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" She shrugged, carefully patting soil around a seedling. "Daddy talks about him sometimes now. He says he was a good man." "He was," I agreed. "Strong but gentle, smart but humble. He loved puzzles and bad jokes and making things with his hands." "Like this garden?" "Yes, and the house we used to live in. He built a lot of the furniture himself." She was quiet for a moment, concentrating on her planting. Then, "Daddy says he's trying to be more like Grandpa now." My throat tightened unexpectedly. "That's a good thing to try." "Is that why you forgave him? Because Grandpa would want you to?" Out of the mouths of babes, I considered the question seriously. "Partly, yes. Your grandfather believed in second chances, but also because your daddy is working hard to make things right, and because holding on to anger hurts the person who's angry more than anyone else." She nodded, absorbing this wisdom with the solemnity only children can bring to philosophical discussions. "And Mommy, have you forgiven her too?" A more complicated question. Erin and I had established a cautious civility over the past year. Not friendship, not even warmth, but a mutual acknowledgement of each other's permanent place in Lily's life. "I'm working on it," I said honestly. "Forgiveness is a process, not a moment." Lily seemed to accept this. She's different now, sadder sometimes, but she listens more. People can change, I said, when they're brave enough to try. Later that evening, as I sat on the patio watching the sunset, Eleanor joined me, bringing her customary offering of iced tea. At 75, she remained formidable, silver hair cut in a no-nonsense bob, posture military straight, mind razor-sharp. 2 years, she said, settling into the chair beside me. Would you have believed it, back then? I knew what she meant. 2 years since the hearing, since the breaking and remaking of my family, since I'd chosen safety over niceness, as Thomas had advised. No, I admitted. I couldn't see past the hurt then. And now, I thought about it, about Jason, 15 months sober and rebuilding his life piece by piece, about Sophia, flourishing in her independence, about Lily, growing and thriving despite the fractures in her family, even about Aaron, who had finally begun to see me as a person rather than an obstacle or a resource. Now I'm grateful, I said, not for what happened, but for where it led. Eleanor nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. She'd known me for 40 years, had seen me through Thomas's death, through raising children, through reinventing myself after retirement. She knew that gratitude didn't erase the pain of betrayal, but it could coexist with it. You know what Thomas would say, she remarked. Watching a hummingbird visit the feeder, I smiled. That I'm the stubbornest woman he ever met. And thank God for that, Eleanor added, raising her glass in a small toast. We sat in comfortable silence as the light faded. I thought about the journey of the past 2 years, from fear to confrontation to rebuilding, from a whispered warning from my granddaughter to a complete reconstruction of my life and relationships. I take long walks most mornings now, drink my tea without rush, read books without interruption. Some days I don't speak to anyone but the birds and the woman at the front gate. Those are good days, too. I don't feel invisible anymore. I don't feel small. I feel like myself, someone I hadn't realized I'd stopped being until I remembered what it felt like to be seen. And when Lily wraps her arms around me and says, "You're my favorite person," I believe her because I know now I'm worth being chosen. The scars remain, of course. Trust, once broken, never heals quite the same way, but there's strength in the mended places, wisdom in the painful lessons, and a fierce kind of joy in reclaiming your own worth. So if you're reading this, and someone has made you feel small in a room you built with your own hands, don't wait for the door to open. Don't wait for them to remember who you are. Stand up, dust off the bench, and start walking. You were never meant to be just a footnote. You are the whole story.